Hi friends, this is Hemant here and welcome to Reactjs video series. So as of now we have completed 3 videos. First video we created a basic application and configured Webpack and Babel in that application. Then we created routing to get a simple React page ready. Okay. Then we added SAS for our CSS, and in this fourth video we'll be working on hooks. In particularly we'll be creating a useFetch hook. So in this useFetch hook we'll be passing URL, API URL as parameter, and we'll be getting the data from that API URL. Okay, so the 3 videos which we have created, I have pushed my code for those videos in this H world. Okay, and those code resides in this 3: check-in 1, check-in 2 and check-in 3 respectively. So I have created now a check-in 4 which I would be pushing after this video. Okay, so the URL which we would be using are JSON placeholder. Okay, and we have the users list. We have 10 users in this API. Okay, so this is for users. We'll be calling this. Okay, and then we'll be calling this post URL as well. Okay, so when we pass an ID to it, it displays the content which has ID as 1. If we don't pass this parameter, then we would get list of all the posts. Okay, so that being said, let's get started and move to our code base. Okay, so first let us start with installing Axios. Let me go into my terminal and do npm install dash save Axios. Once Axios is installed, let's do import of that Axios. Okay, and we'll also require useEffect. Okay, so let me copy the JSON placeholder users API. Okay, and okay, so once we have this users URL, let's do useEffect, and in this useEffect let's call fetch data. Okay, this would be the method we would be calling. Okay, and inside this fetch data we will have it should be a constant fetch data. We'll call the Axios dot get will pass in the URL. Okay, once we pass in the URL we'll get a response, and let's console log this response. res data. Okay, and we'll split this, and here we'll call npm start. We'll go to inspect and go to console, and let's go into users. So once we click on this users, we should get the 10 users. Okay, now we are able to call this. Okay, so this logic, okay, this logic can be replicated in other component as well, right? So what we'll do is we'll create a hook to call the data from the URL and just return the data. Okay, this fetching of data, let's create a hook, and we'll get the data from that hook. So first what we'll do is we'll go into source and create a folder called hooks. Okay, inside this hook so we'll create a file called usefetch.js. Okay, and we'll do rafce. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put this on the right hand side so that we can just copy paste what is there in the user. Okay, so all the common logic we'll put it in useFetch. Cut this and paste it over here. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll create one state. So this state would have the data. Use state, okay, data, set data, and initially it would be an empty array. Okay, one more state will create. Let's create that, and we'll call that is loading. Okay, this loading value would be true. Okay, and what we'll do is inside here we'll call the set data and set this. So what we'll do is inside this set data, after this set data we'll set this is loading as well. So is loading, and we'll mark it as false. Okay, and the important part now left is we need to return this. So we'll return the data and we'll return the is loading. Okay, so now what we'll do is we don't want this Axios now in the user. What we'll do is import, okay, and we'll import this hooks and the useFetch component. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll create one constant and we'll copy this and we'll call useFetch, and inside this useFetch we'll pass the URL. Okay, this looks great. Now let's come into the return part. In this return, what we'll do is if it is not is loading, then we will show our data, and this data would be, we have that data, or what we'll do is data dot map. Okay, we'll call user. Inside this we will do div and so we'll have u dot username. So let's print this first and see if we are able to get the data. Okay, let me go into our users and do a refresh. So it says URL is not defined. Okay, so what we forgot was we are passing the URL in the fetch, but we have not put it as parameter. So this should get it working. Okay, now we are able to see the data, but if you see in the console we have this error for unique key. So why this comes is now we don't require this useFetch, so let me close this. So we require a key so that React can identify uniquely what this div is. So we'll pass u.id and let's see if that error goes. Okay, now that error is not showing. Okay, so now what we can do is we can create one more file called post.js. Okay, inside this post let me do rafce, and we would do the same thing. We'll copy this, okay, and we'll paste it over here. We'll change the URL in a bit. We'll copy this as well and we'll do like this, and from the users we don't require this use effect, so we'll remove that since we are here. Okay, everything looks good in users. In this we would do is post and we'll pass one parameter so that we won't get a list, we would only get one post. Okay, now we are passing that URL in this useFetch and we'll get the data. And now what I'll do is let me call whatever there, so is loading, we'll check over here and we have this data we'll put a div, close that div as well, and inside here what we'll do is data dot title, and let's see if this shows up. Okay, so now what we need to do is, first thing is go to our app.js. We don't have a switch or a router, so post tab, and it's auto imported on line number 10, and here we'll put post. Okay, so we have the router ready. Now we need a navigation, so for that we need to go in our header and just copy this, paste it, put our post in here and post. Okay, so we'll have a nav link on our header. Okay, once post is not defined in app.js, post looks good, so let me refresh this and see. Okay, we have this post now. I'll click on this post and we have the data. Okay, in the post we just showed the title. Okay, what we can do is we can show data dot body as well, and let me go, so even the body is coming up over here. So we just completed using the useFetch hook, and I suppose you would have a good hold of how to fetch data from an API and show it on a screen. So what basically we did was we created a useFetch. This is a common functionality wherein you just need to pass the URL. Okay, once you pass the URL you get the data, and you will also get this is loading. From this is loading you will come to know whether the data is already set in our data, and we can use this data. So in whatever calling component, what first you can do is you can check if the data is loading or data is set in the data parameter or the data variable, and then you can show it on your screen. Okay, so this completes the fourth video. Thanks for watching guys. If you like this video, do comment, share. Thank you.